Okay, well, now we're going to have a time of discussion, obviously, regarding this topic of suffering. Just want to say first, thank you, girls, for sharing your stories. And, as I've been thinking about this discussion and talked with Heather and Karen, I feel like the purpose of bringing this topic of suffering into the conference this weekend, we're talking about discipleship and, learning to be more like Jesus in the way that we reach out to people and, just share our faith with others. That the purpose of this topic is kind of twofold. Like, one, that we can learn, by just hearing from you guys, and suffering is a topic that all of us are familiar with to some extent, and as Christians, to learn how to better reach out into your lives and the lives of our friends who are suffering, going through hardships of any kind. And so that's the one purpose. And then the second thing I was thinking is that we're all called to be like Jesus, and we all have broken lives, more broken at times, but to be like Jesus in our brokenness and in your journey with your suffering, still living out, trying to reach out to others. So anyway, I have a few questions, then we're going to have a panel discussion, and we're just going to pray that the Lord, the Spirit, will lead us in sharing, and that you will all be blessed by this discussion. So, first question here is, as you go through suffering, there are cycles of wrestling and surrender. Can you describe what that has been like?
Start. Just kind of like Mandy, was saying in her story, and going through the desert. And there's times of joy and times when you can rejoice and feel strong in your faith, and then there's times when you just maybe want to crawl in a hole or just, kind of bury yourself and not come out. But I think part of it is just continuing to walk, and for myself, it's just been continuing to hang on to God's Word and prayer, and just trusting Him through it. And I have to say, I guess I said in my bio that Neil has suffered pain for years, and sometimes I kind of give him a hard time, because a lot of times if people ask him how he is, he's fine. He's, terrific. And I'm thinking, you are not terrific, you're not fine. But yet I think about that, and it's like, maybe sometimes we come across with a smile on our face and act like everything's fine, and we really can't share, and maybe that's his way too, because it's like, do people really want to know, how you really are, how you really feel?
That was another question that I thought about, and actually this seems like a good time to bring it up. Like how you feel about people asking how you are doing, because a lot of the time there really isn't enough time to get into that, and so you don't know how to answer it or how to respond. How do you feel about people asking how you are doing?
I'll just say it quick. I think sometimes, even though I've given him, a hard time about doing that, I think back and think my life could, and even for the kids, could have been so different. Because if he would have been grumpy and just complained all the time, that would not have made life fun. But because he's always tried to be, upbeat and maybe just say he's fine and terrific, it keeps his attitude up, which has also allowed our family to enjoy life and to be happy in spite of difficulty.
I guess personally, I don't mind when somebody asks me if I'm okay, because usually you can tell. I think you would all say this. You know who's really asking. Are you, how are you doing? And for those people, I can get into it, and for the rest of them, I'm at the point right now where I can say, I'm okay. And, that doesn't mean I'm fine, that doesn't mean I'm wonderful, it means I'm okay, I'm still moving, I'm going okay, and the best thing I can ever say is it is well with my soul, because that's the bottom line. The rest of it, sooner or later, will follow, so.
We have a joke in our house that when we say that we're fine, my husband goes, "You know what fine means, right? Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional." It's like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, it's from a movie, actually. It's interesting to me how I have watched and realize now, hindsight is always 20/20, how God has set things in motion from the very beginning and has prepared us for this, even though it doesn't feel like it in the heat of it. But I've always been a fairly positive person. I've always viewed life as the glass half full. And so when I say that I'm doing okay, I usually mean that. And it's funny because my doctors, especially after this last year, they would look at me and they'd be like, "It's okay to be upset." Like, they didn't think I was telling the truth. And I looked at them and I'm like, I know, I am. But the fact is that my hope and my trust lie in something bigger than this world. And so I am okay, because I know that this is temporary. And that has been something that I've held on to, especially in the recent months. When I first got cancer when I was 16, I lost about half the mobility in my arm. But I was still able to adapt quite well, especially when you're a kid. You just adapt well to things. As you get older, as many of us know, those adaptations take a lot more effort. And so this time I've lost all of the mobility in my arm. I can still do some things. I've, again, learned to adapt, but it's been way more painful and more difficult than I had expected on some ends. On the other end, though, it really is having that perspective that this is temporary. It's also interesting to me how God orchestrated and prepared for me the husband and the family that I married into. This is my mother-in-law, for any of you that don't know. And watching my father-in-law live with a chronic illness has given me the strength to keep going. And when I watch him, he is one of the most godly men I've ever met in my life. And to be able to, some days he can't even get off the couch. Like, it's just a struggle just to stand. And to still see him saying, "It is well with my soul," in that, and to see purpose in that, that's encouraging. And so it's just, God does things, even in the little things, he does with purpose. And so to be surrounded by that, to be in a family who understands what that's like, to be able to support one another and love one another through that has been just a blessing through that, I think. So.
How we pray that God could use us in the lives of people that don't have such a support. So, did you want to share anything on that subject, Mandy, or I have other questions? Michael?
Well, it's not exactly about how you're doing, because I feel like I'm always okay when people ask that too, and I could always tell if somebody is really wanting to know, or if it's just more of like a "hi, how are you?" and then you pass on. So at least they're thinking about you, and That's always positive. When Heather said about having that faith and that hope, and I gotta tell you, I am hanging on by a thread, and it's always so confusing, and I want that, you know, and it's just like no matter how I pressed for it, I know God's there for me, and I know Jesus is here, and that's the only reason I'm still at church every Sunday, and I want that back. And so I don't really know where I'm going with this, but that's what popped into my head. So
How about you could continue, because this kind of goes along with it. How has your suffering changed you or your faith?
That's a good one. So I didn't become a Christian until I was 21, and that was through loss. And a couple years after that, I had another big loss, but nothing can compare to losing a child. And I kept my faith strong through all the different things in my life. And how has it changed me? It's changed every piece of me.
Is there any good?
Is there any good?
Share
The good of suffering?
I mean, how you've changed in a good way.
I think when I get to the end of the desert, I'm going to have a stronger faith than back when I thought I had a strong faith, because the God I thought was God isn't the real God. I mean, He doesn't change. My perception of Him was skewed. And so I'm in the process of finding who He really is and coming to terms with that. So I think that is a good thing in the long run.
I wonder if, having been in the darkness, and maybe you're still working toward getting, it sounds like you're still hoping for that joy. But once you get past it, although you're not ever completely past it, maybe the Lord provides such deep suffering that you can, it's like a blessing to be able to just feel more deeply and love more deeply others who are going through suffering, which we all do in our life. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, so that was a really good point too. That is one thing that I never realized, because I did all the Christian things. I said all the Bible verses, and I said, all these things, and going through suffering definitely has provided me the opportunity to be able to sit in the ashes, where it's uncomfortable and it's hard to see people hurting, and I can sit there now and I don't have to say anything, and that has been a very big blessing too, like just learning to be quiet and just be there for somebody.
I think too, one of the things I have really learned, aside from the fact that my perception of God was way too small too, and He broke out of the box when this happened, but just to realize that everybody grieves and everybody suffers in their own way, and they have their own way of doing it, and it's not on my timetable, it's not on the timetable that these women would say. Everybody has their own way of dealing with it and of their own way of coming to grips with it, and that's one thing I have learned, to listen, as you say, to sit with people, and the big thing too is just to pray for each person that comes into your life, and know that only God has an answer for them. And even when, you know, I want to sit in the house with my curtains drawn and the lights off, and that's okay. We can all be there. You can be there. And of course, you know, we could do that now. We could sit in the house with the curtains drawn because we can even get our groceries delivered and order them online. We don't even have to go out of the house. So just know that wherever you are in your journey, it's okay, and God knows, and some of us are willing to listen and sit with you.
What are some ways you wish that people would have or were able to reach into your void, maybe in different ways than people did for you? Or if people did something that was really meaningful by reaching in, what was that?
I think what has been the best thing, I guess, for me is the way my church family has come around me. And they are ones who will continue to ask, Lori, how are you doing? Lori, I'm praying for you. My children, we have 3, and they're grieving in their own way, and they haven't quite figured it out yet either. But my church family has been there for me, and that's been good.
I'm just going to say one thing that was maybe difficult was for so many years when Neil wasn't able to go to church, and I just felt like no one, actually reached out to him to connect with him. As far as like other, obviously family and that kind of thing, but maybe men in the church, that kind of thing. And it was just so neat when we had an interim pastor, Pastor Kurt, was here, and I had so wanted, somehow for Neil to connect, with church people, because it's like, it's my church, but I feel like it's not, like he didn't really know people. And we had, I think Pastor Kurt, he was up at Sherry and Richards, and he and I had invited them, he and his wife Maureen, and so they walked down and met Neil, and talked with him, and Pastor Kurt, after that, went out to our house and met with Neil and took a couple of the men with him, and he, apologized for not, doing that sooner, and it just meant so much, not only to me, but to Neil as well, and he's been able to connect, with a few of the guys that have done a Bible study and continue to do that when they can meet and come out to the house. And of course I had to lay down the whole point of I'm one who thinks, oh, they can't come to my house because like we're in the midst of construction for the last 4 years. But it's like, no, but it's like, okay, God, I have to let that go, because it's something that Neil needs, and I'm just grateful that it took a long time, but that they have been able to do that and reach out to him. So
That's nice. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have any thing they felt like they really wanted to be able to share yet before we're getting close to having to wrap things up here? That question was, what are some ways you wish that people would have reached into your void, or if there was an especially nice way that somebody did reach out to you?
So when we were in the hospital, it was amazing, right? I mean, the church family, there was somebody up at our room. They're sharing. At least 3-4 times a week, and that was amazing. And when he passed away, everybody was bringing food over, and sitting and visiting with us. It was a time of shock, of course, but it was a wonderful amazing feeling to know that not only do you have your regular family, you have this humongous church family that's praying for you. I mean, we had people praying all the way over in Thailand for Matthias, so it was pretty cool. And as far as stepping into the void, that was really more when the desert started. It's when everybody else is normal and you don't really have anyone to sit with and to be angry or to be sad and frustrated, like truly feel those feelings. It's so lonely. So I guess the only thing I can think of, the biggest thing would be just learning to sit with people. They don't teach you how to do that. It's scary. So that really is something that I want to give to other people. So I hope more and more people are able to do that.
Okay, well, I just want to say thanks again to all of you for sharing, and I hope this time has been a blessing for the rest of you as well. And